All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. Callie Mae, do you want to get us started?
Yes, thank you. Okay. Pardon me, I was finishing my breakfast off camera. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today for today's Health and Safety Advisory Committee. Can we start with a roll call, please?
Of course. Callie Mae Pham.
Present.
Reese Isbell.
Here.
Danielle Munoz.
Here.
Jude Ballman.
Here.
Paul Bryson.
Here.
Brandon Hart.
Here.
Brandy Hamilton.
Here.
Paula Johnson. Leslie Rosti.
Here.
Yumi Yoon.
Here.
And Giovanni Harfouche is absent, and Asia Jackson is absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Let's move on to our second item on the agenda, election of a committee chairperson. This is an annual election. Oh, did you want to preface anything, Christy? No, okay. I was only recently elected as chairperson in September to replace our former board member who retired. I'm happy to continue to serve, but I'm also happy to hear if anybody else would like to serve as chairperson this year. You do not need to be a member of the main board in order to serve as chairperson of this committee. So at this time, I would like to invite any of our other committee members to express their interest, if they have any, to be chairperson.
This is Sabina. Good morning, everyone. You can also feel free to make any nominations, even if it isn't yourself.
All right. At this time, I'm not seeing any hands. Feel free to, for this virtual meeting, again, feel free to raise your hand. I will call on you if you'd like to speak, but if I miss your hand, feel free to just come off mute as well. I'm not seeing any hands at this time. All right, so I guess I will self-nominate to be chairperson of this committee for this year. Anyone? Sabina, can I make my own motion, or would someone else?
You absolutely can make your own motion. We just would need a second, and then public comment, and then a vote.
Great. Okay, so I will move then to have myself serve as chairperson again for this year. Is anyone willing to second?
I second Callie Mae.
Okay, we have a second from member Danielle Munoz. Thank you. Okay, so let's move to public comment.
This is the moderator, and we've opened up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If you'd like to make a comment on the motion for chair, you can look for the question mark icon, typically in the lower right of your WebEx screen. And once you click that, you'll see a text box. You can type the word comment and click send. Or anyone may raise their hand to ask to speak by clicking once on the hand icon. Are there any comments on the motion? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so at this time, let's move to a roll call vote.
Callie Mae Pham.
Yes.
Reese Isbell.
Yes.
Danielle Munoz.
Yes.
Jude Ballman.
Yes.
Paul Bryson.
Yes.
Brandon Hart.
Yes.
Brandy Hamilton.
Yes.
Leslie Rosti.
Yes.
Yumi Yoon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you for your continued confidence in me in this role. Let's move on to the next agenda item, Executive Officer's Report. Our opening remarks, Christy.
Good morning, everyone. I usually like to just give a little opening on this committee because it's so different than our other board committees. This committee is a statutorily required committee to have, and we, as you heard from our roll call, we have 3 of our board members, Callie Mae Pham, Reese Isbell, and Danielle Munoz, who are joining us on this committee. But then we have a host of other people who we have selected to be on this committee. So it's a little different as we bring in outside members, we bring in licensees, we bring in experts to help us with the decisions that we make on this committee. So thank you all so much for your willingness to serve on this committee. We have, today we're going to be, after our next item, which is our committee meeting minutes from our last meeting, we're going to be diving into our health and safety regulations. These are regulations that have been worked on by this committee for quite some time. We are going to try to move through these as efficiently and quickly as possible. Because we have worked on these regs for so long, we're hoping today that the committee chooses to move these forward to the board for their approval to begin the regulatory process. Just so you all know, the regulatory process is quite extensive. If the committee chooses to put these to the board, then the board will vote on them to start the regulatory process. And then it's going to be quite some time from there before we see these enacted. This is an extensive regulation package, and it has to go through lots of reviews. We're super happy to have the Department of Public Health with us here today, but it does actually have to go through their entire department for review as well. So just wanted you all to know that while we may vote on the regs today, or we may decide we need another meeting to continue, that's the committee's decision, that it doesn't stop here. These could still see extensive changes as they move through the process, and it still could be quite some time before we see anything actually enacted to where we would put this out to the industry. So keep that in mind as you're going through the process today. And with that, again, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. I know all of you are very busy, and I really appreciate the time that you are giving us to assist us with this important project. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Christy. I think what I heard you describe is the language that we're looking at today. Again, that is not going to be the final language. A lot of people are going to be looking at that language. There might be many, many other iterations. Okay, so thank you for that. All right, let's move on to, let's handle item number 4 first. A review and possible approval of September 26, 2022 committee meeting minutes. I hope everyone had a chance to review those. Please raise your hand or come off mute if you believe that there should be any recommended changes or corrections to those minutes. If not, if someone can make a motion so that we can approve these minutes, and we'll need a second as well. I'm not seeing any hands. So first, let's handle any suggestions for changes or corrections to the minutes. Okay.
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Reese. Can I get a second to approve the minutes from September 26, 2022?
I will second.
Was that Brandy?
Brandy.
Oh,
yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Since we're virtual and not everyone can see each other's screens, if we can kind of announce our names as we speak, just so we can keep track of who's speaking. Thank you so much, Randy, for that. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Let's move to public comment.
And this is the moderator. We've opened up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If you would like to make a comment on the minutes, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment in that text box and click send, or anyone may raise their hand to ask to comment by clicking once on the hand icon. Are there any comments on the minutes? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, let's move on to a roll call vote on the motion.
Kelly Maytham,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
I abstain.
Jude Ballman,
I'll abstain as well.
Paul Bryson,
Abstain.
Brandon Hart,
Abstain. I was not present at September's meeting.
Randy Hamilton,
Yes.
Leslie Rosti,
Yes.
Yumi Yoon,
Yes.
Do we have enough yes votes?
Yeah, this is Sabina. Yes, absolutely. And just a reminder to all our members, if you're not present at a meeting, you can still vote to approve the minutes. You're not approving that you know that that's exactly what happened. You're approving the record of a meeting for, history's sake, if you will, and for the record of the committee. So just going forward, just know you can still vote. You're approving the record of the meeting.
Thank you so much for that clarification, Sabina. Okay, if we have enough votes, so the motion passes?
That's correct.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so let's move on to our next agenda item, the review of the recommendation regarding possible amendments to the health and safety regulations. So I will turn it back over to Christy.
All right, here we go. Okay, we're going to take this page by page. Hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at these. I know we have some new members on, so please feel free that if you have something that you want to comment on, let us know. We are trying to watch the raised hand, but feel free to jump in at any time. And we will go ahead and get started. I'm going to just go page by page. I'm not going to read everything because I think that nobody wants to hear me talk that much. So we will get started right now, and we are looking at page 1, which is for the most part our health and safety definitions. Does anybody have any comments on page 1? And just to be clear, what we'll do, I figured, is go through a few pages at a time, and then we'll open it up to public comment on those pages so that we can get the public's input on those portions. All right, I'm not hearing or seeing anyone on any comments on page 1. We'll go ahead and move to page 2. This continues actually with our definitions. So does anybody have any input on page 2? All right, seeing and hearing none, we will move to page 3. Does anyone have any comments on page 3? All right, I am hearing and seeing none. We will go ahead and move on to page 4. Does anyone have any comments or suggestions on page 4?
I have a grammar question on let's see, where it says A9, all establishment owners, school owners, and licensees shall not have all tools. Should it be any tools? Or does that matter?
Sorry, Reese, where are you at?
The fourth paragraph, it's 9.
Got it. Yeah, you're correct. Thank you. Annie.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is it any?
Oh,
We don't want it to be any. I think that note was because what we didn't want them to do is to label everything dirty,
That's right.
nothing clean, as a way of getting around getting inspected on them. So they should have some labeled dirty, some labeled clean. We don't want everything to be labeled dirty.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Right. Any other comments on page 4? Okay, we're going to move on to page 5.
Okay, Chrissy, I do not see any comments on this, but we're about 1/4 of the way. Do you want to take this pause for public comment?
That would be perfect. So we will take public comment on anything that the committee has looked at so far. So pages 1 through 5.
All right, let's open public comment. Again, we just reviewed pages 1 through 5. In your agenda packet, that would be pages 15 through 19.
And this is the moderator, and we've opened up the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment. If you've got a comment on any of the pages we've already discussed, you can either click on the question mark icon, type the word comment in the text box and click send, or anyone may raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon. And the hand icon may be behind the 3-dot other options if you're on a mobile device. Are there any comments so far? And I do not see any comments at this point. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Christy. Please carry on.
All right. We are now on page 6. Are there any comments from the committee on page 6? All right, we'll move on to page 7. Any comments on page 7?
Hi, Paul Bryson here, trying to figure out how to do the hand up function.
That's okay,
Sorry.
just jump in.
Okay, page 7. Single-use disposable recyclable liners. Section C. Shall not be disinfected or reused. That's good. Trash bags shouldn't be used. The liner must be disposed after use. That's good. The basin shall be cleaned and disinfected according to 1, 3, 5, 6, and 7. Given that the basin is not a skin contact situation, isn't it enough that they change the liner and keep the basin clean? Is it necessary to require disinfectant on the basin itself? That's my question.
What is your opinion on that, Paul? You don't think they need to do disinfectant?
My opinion is that, well, cleaning is 99% of disinfection anyway. If they clean the basins and then they're putting a liner, and the liner's changed after each client, why do they need a disinfectant? They're spending money and putting disinfectant down the drain. And realistically, enforcement-wise, probably people aren't going to do it unless the inspector's standing there in any case. I think it's both unenforceable and unnecessary. That's just one man's opinion.
Uh-huh. I see Leslie Rosti, you have your hand up.
I do. I agree with Paul, actually. Most states are going to just cleaning in between pedicures when a liner is used, and then disinfecting fully at the end of the day. So that seems to be a pretty common practice with I haven't seen any increase in infections or injuries with that change.
Thank you. I see Brandy, your hand is up.
Yes. As someone, I just got a pedicure on Saturday. I think it depends on the type of liners. There are some pedicure bowls that have a hard shell liner that you physically pick up and remove. And there are some that are those trash bag type style liner. It's not a trash bag. It's intended to fit the bowl. However, the only way to remove that water is to then puncture the bag and then allow it to get into the pedicure basin. And there is debris sometimes if you're getting a mask or whatever kind of treatments that they're doing, clippings, things like that. And also it just can possibly be punctured at some point throughout the pedicure service. I don't know if they necessarily need to do all of those deep cleaning steps, but there should be some sort of spray, wipe down, disinfectant of the basin because of those factors. And I have rarely seen the hard liners. I typically see those plastic liners. And as I discussed in the last meeting, they're putting this capsule, the cover over that liner, which also punctures the liner as well. So the basin is not completely cleaned.
Great, thank you. Any other comments on this? So I just to be clear, what we're discussing right now is what someone, if we remove the disinfection portion of the basin with a liner, what they would still be required to do is drain the water from the basin, remove and clean all of the removable parts, such as the screens, jets, foot plates, and or magnetic jets. Those removable parts shall be scrubbed and cleaned individually with a clean brush, liquid soap, and water. They would rinse the inside of the basin with water. They would then reinsert any clean removable parts, and they would drain that they wouldn't be doing number 5 and number 6, and then they would wipe dry with a new paper towel. So that's, we're talking about removing steps 5 and 6, which is refilling with water on the appropriate amount of EPA registered disinfectant. So they're still having to clean it, but they just wouldn't be going through the actual disinfectant process at this time because they would be putting in another liner. And at this point, I see Leslie, you've raised your hand again.
Well, I think it's also important to acknowledge one of the things Paul brought up was enforcement. And I do think that when we require someone to disinfect, that disinfectant has a 10-minute contact time. So that makes, if we don't absolutely think we have to have the disinfection portion in there, we are saving not only time that they're not likely to spend, to Paul's point, unless someone's standing over them, but we're also, I know you guys have had a lot of rain lately, so this might be a kind of a rub to say this, but you don't have a lot of water in your state, right? And so we're not filling a bowl an additional time if it's not absolutely necessary. So I'm sorry about all your rain, but at this point, it's just conserving the water is even significant.
Reggie, did you have another comment? I see your hand, but I wasn't sure if it was from before.
This is Brandy. No, I don't have another comment. It was just raised from before. But I do think, Christy, you were saying removing of 5 and 6, but still keeping 1, 3, and 7 would be appropriate then.
Okay. Any other comments on the suggestion to remove 5 and 6 from this portion?
This is Callie Mae. So I just want to kind of understand. So if we remove the, I'm fine with removing 5 and 6 if, the consensus is it's not realistic and, it might be too onerous and actually the benefit of it might actually, or the kind of downsides might outweigh the benefits. I'm still curious, then do people have a similar opinion about the removing parts and then kind of scrubbing? Because it sounds like it's the same issue where, I admit when I have, get pedicures, I don't see people stopping and like taking apart the machine and scrubbing everything down. Is that actually happening? Does it make sense to keep it in there? I would love to hear people's committee members' thoughts on that.
I'm just going to unmute since I didn't raise my hand, but it's Leslie again. I don't think we should remove something just because someone doesn't do it. Like, that wasn't what I was saying, so I hope it doesn't get construed that way. But I think we have to sort of draw this realistic line of what is necessary and is worthy of requiring their time and attention, and what other things could we be more realistic about and not put anybody at risk. I think most of us would say, I don't even live in California, but I would say that everywhere I go all over the country, people don't routinely do all of those steps. I literally have never seen anybody remove all the parts ever. And I'm usually out inspecting, like, as a consultant, I'm out inspecting someone's salon and they're still not removing the parts in front of me. And I'm having to remind them to do that if that's the rule in their state. So I agree with you. It doesn't ever really happen. Maybe if what we said is you can take the liner out, and this is what other states say, you remove the liner, you clean the bowl, right? Like, whether that's a spray or soap and rinsing it down and scrubbing it. And then you do all the big stuff, removing all the parts and the full disinfection at the end of the day. That seems to be the sort of common thing I see.
And I would say that we are seeing those removable parts being pretty dirty. So, a lot of those parts go on the inside of the liner. They have the magnetic jets, which is super popular now. You put the liner in and then you put the jet in where the feet actually are. So I think it's important that we keep that in there.
Thank you so much for that discussion. I agree. So are we just tracking amendments we'd like to see, or do we need, yes, how are we going to, how would you like us to address any suggested changes?
So I think if we, and Sabina, jump in if you think of a better idea, but I was thinking we would, we have a recommended change here. If we don't have any opposition on this change from the committee, then we can continue to move on and we'll make it part of the final motion. Would that be okay, Sabina?
That sounds perfect to me. I was keeping notes as well on page 7 on our recommended recommendations to remove potentially each item, and then we'll kind of come back and do a quick summary with the motion for recommending the language with the adjustments to the full board.
Perfect. I do see that Paul has his hand raised.
Yes, there are people that just use tubs of warm water, and then there are people who use tubs with various stirring and agitating devices. I would say that the devices, since they touch the water that touches the client's feet, those should be disinfected between uses. I'm only saying that the liner should spare you the necessity of having to clean the tub itself, just to clarify my intent. That's all.
And we have Carrie Harris. You have your hand raised?
Yeah, in section CC, it says removable magnet jets shall be cleaned after every use according to the requirements of 979A and must not be stored in the foot basin when the foot basin is not in use. I don't know if that helps with the discussion on the removable parts, but those magnetic jets are addressed in the draft we have here.
Which is perfect, because that's exactly what Paul was just mentioning that we need to make sure, I believe that we need to make sure those magnetic jets, those removable parts that are then put back into the water need to be cleaned. And we're just so we're clear that we're saying that the removable jets need to be cleaned according to 979A, which does require disinfection. So those removable parts are going to be required to be disinfected. And we honestly see a lot of salons already doing this process now.
Wonderful. So it sounds to me like we do have consensus on this of removing just for 980.1, removing 5 and 6 and leaving the remaining. Is that correct? Does anybody feel differently? Please raise your hand or unmute to chime in. Otherwise, I think we get ready to move on to the next one. Thank you.
All right. We will move to page 8, which is a lot of strikeout. With our new regulations that we just discussed on foot spas, it allows us to strike out a lot of information. So I'm just going to include 8, 9, and 10, and half of 11 is all strikeout. And I think maybe before we go any further, we should open for public comment.
Okay, great. Thank you, Christy. Okay, so moderator, can we please open public comment? We have addressed pages 6 through 8.
Certainly, and this is the moderator, and we're opening up the public comment feature of WebEx. If you'd like to comment on the pages we've covered, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment in that text box, and click send, or anyone may raise their hand. We do have a request for comment from someone logged into WebEx as Jamie Schrabeck. Jamie, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You're unmuted. Jamie, we're not hearing your voice. And Jamie, you may be able to pull down the little drop down next to the mute button on your WebEx screen and choose a different microphone.
Is this working now?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Good morning. This is Jamie Schrabeck from Precision Nails, and I'm grateful that this is being discussed. And I want to support Paul Bryson's comments about the excessive disinfection that would be required after removal of a liner. As someone who's advocated for waterless services since I've started doing them in 2005, I just want to comment that what's not addressed in any of the health and safety regulations is that cleaning of the feet or hands or hair or body or face of our clients is not a requirement at all. So any cleaning that we choose to do during our procedures is above and beyond what the health and safety regulations require. So I'm not asking that something be added that says, by the way, you don't really need to clean the client's feet, but I think it's written in such a way that makes people think that this is an option, or not an option, rather. So obviously, all of us use tools, all of us use disposable supplies, but not all of us use pedicure equipment. Thank you so much.
And excuse me, I do not see any other requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to you, Christy.
All right. So we are on page 11. Just making a note where I'm left off. We have halfway through that page 11 is where we will start at 981, disposing of single-use tools. Any comments on this section? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to page 12. Any comments on page 12? All right, we will move on to page 13. Any comments on page 13? We will go on to page 14. A lot of strikeout on page 14. There are some edits there, though. Are there any comments on page 14? All right, I think we'll do one more page. Any comments on page 15? All right, I'm seeing no comments, but we're going to go ahead and open it up for a public comment from page about 11.5 to page 15.
Thank you. This is the moderator, and we're opening up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If you'd like to make a comment on the pages we're discussing, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment and click send, or raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. And again, if you are on a mobile device, the hand icon may be behind the 3-dot other options. Are there any questions on the pages currently in discussion? And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we will pick up on page 16. Any comments on page 16? Moving on to page 17. Any comments on page 17? Seeing none, we will go to page 18. Any comments on page 18? All right, any comments on page 19? Moving on to page 19. I feel like an auctioneer a little bit. 19, going once. Any comments on page 19? All right, we will go to page 20. Any comments on page 20? And since we only have one more, we're going to go to page 21. Any comments on page 21? All right, seeing no comments, we will open it up for public comment on pages 16 to 21.
And this is the moderator, and we've opened the public comment feature again. If you'd like to make a comment on the last chunk of pages, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment and click send, or anyone may raise their hand by clicking once on the hand icon. And the hand icon may be behind the 3-dot other options if you're on a mobile device. Are there any comments on the last few pages? And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, since we have reviewed all 21 pages, I think now it's time to do one quick reminder of what changes were recommended, and then let's move to a motion on that.
So the only changes that we are anticipating making is on page 7 in section 981C, which we will remove sections 5 and 6 from the process for cleaning the foot basin after a liner is removed.
Thank you, Christy. Okay. Can I get a motion to, oh, what does the motion need to sound like?
This is Sabina again. So we would be recommending to the full board the updated language in Title 16 Code of Regulations sections 977 and 995 with the noted amendment on page 7 of the text, removing the process for cleaning the foot basin, and we'll be removing number 5 and 6 in the listed requirements.
So since we don't have that in writing, can someone just say so moved?
Hi, this is Danielle. I so move.
Thank you, Danielle. Can we get a second?
This is
This is
Leslie.
Paul
I second.
Bryson. I second.
Great. I saw Paul's hand up first, so thank you so much for Paul for the second, and thank you, Leslie, as well. So Paul second. So let's move to public comment on this motion.
This is the moderator, and we are opening up the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment. If you have any comment on the motion, you may look for the question mark icon, type the word comment, and click send, or anyone may raise their hand if they have any discussion on the motion. Do we have any discussion? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Can we have a roll call vote on the motion?
Kelly Mae Pham,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Yes.
Jude Ballman,
Yes.
Paul Bryson,
Yes.
Art,
Natalie, we can barely hear you, and I don't think we heard that last name.
Okay, let's try that again. Brandon Hart,
Yes.
Brandy Hamilton,
Yes.
Leslie Rosti,
Yes.
Yumi Yoon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Wonderful. So Sabina, did we do everything we needed to do on that item?
It sure looks like it did great.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, great. So that's number 5. Thank you so much. I think that the efficiency in which we move through that item is a reflection of just all the hard work and thoughtful consideration that came before from staff and from this committee. So thank you so much for that. Let's move on to item number 6, public comment on items not on the agenda. Moderator, can we open up the public comment for item number 6?
Certainly. And we're again opening up the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment. If you have anything that was not on the agenda, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment, and click send, or anyone may raise their hand to ask to comment. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak. Are there any comments on anything that was not on the agenda? And I do have a request for comment from Jamie Schrabeck. And Jamie, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone, and you'll have 2 minutes. You're unmuted.
Thank you. The language authorizing this committee's existence focuses on labor laws and the board's responsibility to inform licensees about their rights. And I would ask that this committee consider in the future the fact that the board maintains a website with resources about labor law and rights, but it needs to be updated. I don't believe SB 490, for example, is referenced at all on that page. And considering how many people in this state are compensated via commission as a model, that's problematic. So I would ask that in the future that you look to how you're addressing that mandate from the legislature to address labor laws. Thank you so much.
And I do not see any other requests for public comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Seeing as we have no other public comment, let's move on to item number 7, suggestions for future agenda items. Do any of the committee members have anything they would like to raise for future agenda items? Okay, I don't see any hands from any committee members. This might not really be an agenda item, but I would love, Christy, if you could just chime in on just timelines, what we can expect for our next committee meeting and when we anticipate that happening.
Yes. So what this committee, we don't have a date set for this next committee. This committee usually meets twice a year. One of the things that we need to bring back to this committee is now that you've approved the health and safety regulations, you might remember that this committee also looked extensively at the risks involved with all of the health and safety violations. And that is something that's required by the legislature in our past sunset review. So we have that document, which is very extensive, that we now need to mirror with the regulations because some of the regulations have changed. So our staff will be working on that to bring back a document of draft regulations and basically a draft fine schedule, because we'll want this committee to also now look at these regulations as they're going through the process and look at the fines and determine if those risks are appropriate for the fines. So that will be on our next agenda for this committee. We will work with everyone to plan a date, but I don't anticipate it being within probably the next 4 to 5 months because we're a little short-staffed in this area. So that's a big project to mirror those two documents together. But we anticipate being in touch with you and hopefully having another meeting in late summer.
Okay, thank you, Christy. While that was, did any other committee members think of things that they wanted to add to the agenda or suggest for the next agenda? Just one last opportunity for people to chime in if that's what they'd like to do. Okay, I don't see any hands. So let's do one last public comment for suggestions for future agenda items.
Super. And this is the moderator. We're opening up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate suggestions for future agenda items. If you have any suggestions, you can look for the question mark icon, type comment in that text box, and then click send, or raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. Any suggestions for future topics? And I do not see any requests for public comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so then let's move on to item number 8, adjournment. Thank you again so much, everyone, for joining us this morning and all the great work. And we will see you at our next committee meeting or board meeting, a lot of things before that. But thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.